Good morning, everyone. I'm Kevin Allen, and I'm joined you by my usual broadcast partner, former NHL defenseman Tom Laidlaw, who played 11 seasons in the NHL with the New York Rangers and Los Angeles Kings. This is the Laidlaw and Allen Report. Come to you twice a week to talk all things hockey. And Tom, we're going to start off today talking about 5 questions. You know, everybody's kind of honed in on the playoff situation. You know, there's pretty good races going on. I thought it was a week ago. I thought it was settled, but now we have Arizona's moved by the St. Louis Blues and Nashville. The Blackhawks won't go away. In the Central. But I want to address 5 questions first, and some of them aren't related to the playoffs. And the first one I got for you is: Can the Rangers get out? Can the Rangers get into the playoffs with as well as they're playing? And if so, at whose expense?
Well, first of all, the answer is yes, they can, and they're doing their part. I mean, they're 7-1-2 in the last 10 games. They've got the best goal differential in that division. But the problem is the Boston Bruins just have turned it on all of a sudden. And it looks like I was dead wrong on the trade for Taylor Hall. He stepped in there and scored more goals for them already than they did for Buffalo all season long. So Boston's playing great hockey right now, but Rangers are playing fantastic hockey as well. So yes, I think they can, but that does mean that it is going to be at Boston's expense, and they're going to have to, something's got to happen there that they don't continue to play the way they are. So
yeah. Well, it's interesting. That Bruins team, they looked dead in the water.
Yeah.
But they were also all beat up as well, and their goaltending, their goalies were injured, and they just didn't seem to have the drive on. The defensemen were all banged up as well.
Yeah.
But what's really remarkable is I think, and you included, thought the Penguins might fail, but
totally.
they haven't kept up with the Rangers, but they're only a couple points behind in the last 10 games. They haven't lost that much ground, so I mean they're still vulnerable. There are 11 games left, and let's just say the Rangers go 8-3, which I don't think is unrealistic, and they might go 9-2 in those 11 games.
Sure.
Like that's how well they're playing. So let's just give them 8-3. So that would be 16 points added. So now they'll be at 68, and now the Bruins have 13 games left. So if they go 500, now they'll still be a point ahead. So I guess we got to go 9-2. Okay, let's give the Rangers 9-2. So now they got 18 points added on. So they got 70. And then if the Bruins only go 500 in the 13 games, so they get 13 points, they got 69. So, they would fall behind them. But that's what they really need. They really need
that's interesting. You stated like that. That's really interesting because the Bruins look 7-2-1 in the last 10 games. What would make you think?
Yeah. Are they going to really go 500? Yeah. And the Rangers still got to go 9-2.
Yeah.
Any slip up. But what about here's a better comparison. Now, although it's very similar, like the Penguins now have the same number of games as the Rangers, so they've got 11 left too. So let's give those Rangers now. We'll have them go 8-3. So 8-3, that adds 16. That gives them 68. So the Penguins then could only get 9 points out of 11 games. So they'd have to be below 500.
Right.
Just one game below 500. But this Penguin team, as much as I'm lauding them for keeping up with the top teams in the division, they lost to the Sabres yesterday.
Yeah.
So they're capable of losing that, but they are 6-3-1 in their last 10 games. And what's interesting about that is, we think the Islanders have been pretty consistent, although they haven't been quite as good without Anders Lee. But they're 6-4 in their last 10. The Capitals are 6-4 in their last 10. And they made that bold trade that the Capitals did with the Red Wings, and they got Mantha, who has scored for that team since they got him, but they didn't look good on national television this weekend.
No, totally. But here's the thing with the Rangers too, and you're right. They're playing well enough, and they're playing the way that it looks like they want to make the playoffs. But the reality is, for that organization, I still think they're kind of ahead of schedule for the rebuild. I don't think they really, all the young kids like Hedl and Capo Caco and Lafreniere and all those guys, are really now starting to get better and better, and they will get better and better as the years go on. So as much as I think, yes, they definitely want to make the playoffs, I don't think you'd look at the Rangers as a disappointment if they didn't make the playoffs. If anything, I think that, man, they're really playing some good hockey.
Well, I think you only look at it as a disappointment from the perspective at the end, just like they were last year. They're playing well enough to be considered, in the mix. Now, what are we? Are we in? This is if you count this is the second full season after the announcement mid-season, right? For the rebuild when they had the press conference. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So second full season. So, I mean, that's a pretty quick turnaround. Although they didn't really do from the chassis up rebuild. They kept a lot of their guys. They didn't move everybody out. So
I mean, who they keep?
They signed Panarin.
Well, yes, you're right. It wasn't a pure rebuild in terms of just going with draft picks. I mean, they signed Trouba,
right.
They signed Panarin. You're right.
To me, that's I would call that a partial rebuild.
It's a expedited rebuild. Yes, you're right. Rebuild.
Yeah. I mean, it's just they kept some guys, and Kreider's not gone.
Right.
And you don't normally sign a guy like Panarin if you're rebuilding.
So yes, right. And that was a great signing too. And Trouba was a great signing. Like, he's now playing more of the game I think they expected him to play. Like last year, I thought he tried to do too much and made mistakes by holding on the puck too long. This year, he's banging bodies. He had a great hit the other. I can't remember which game it was. Most recent game against New Jersey. So he's and people may not look at his game and go, "Wow, he's great." He's that kind of defenseman. He's that Kenny Morrow kind of defenseman. Maybe a little bit of a heavier player, heavier shot. But he's playing well. How about Georgiev, the goaltender yesterday? I think it was in the first period against New Jersey. He gets hurt, and I guess his knee, and it's happened before, his knee kind of jams up on him. And basically the way they said the paper was they had to go in and put it back in place, is how they said it. And then he came back and finished the game. So,
man, I don't even like the sound of that. So.
Yeah, I know. But the way they sounded was like, well, it's happened before. It just kind of pops out of place. They pop it back in, he goes in place. Yeah.
Wow. I just that's too much for me.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. I don't like to hear that. But you kind of glossed over the fact that their goal differential, they being the Rangers, is plus 33. But how many times do you think in NHL history the fifth place team in a division has led that division in goal differential? Like, listen to this now. So the Capitals are at plus 22. The Islanders are at plus 22. The Penguins are, the Capitals have only lost 13 games and the Islanders have only lost 13 games. And they're at plus 22. The Penguins are better than the Capitals and the Islanders at plus 26. And those three teams have played similar number of games, 45 and 45 for the Islanders and 46 for the Capitals. Then we got the Bruins, a team, a highly respected team, only at plus 15. And yet they've won 4 in a row. 7-2-1 in their last 10, just a game better than the Penguins, and just a game behind or a tie or a extra point below what the Rangers are producing. Right. And then you got the Philadelphia Flyers at minus 34. Is there anything that illustrates how poorly the Flyers have played than the fact that they have scored? Their goal differential is 67 goals different from the Rangers.
Right. So let's look at the Philadelphia Flyers problem. Well, first of all, the Rangers, they deserve to have that, but the number might be a little bit distorted because they played Philly there twice. So I think they won like 8-0 and 8-1 or something, or some huge scores. But then you got to look at Philadelphia and you say, all right, it's a whole organizational issue in my mind. You go way back, and we touched on this before, when Ron Hextall was fired because he would not bring Carter Hart up and play. He didn't think he was ready. They brought him up after they fired Ron Hextall, and initially he played well. This year he's really struggled. So, and even the coaches call him out saying he needs to work harder. And then you wonder, and I hate to be like this because Alan Vigneault was a former player and everything, but when he left New York here, he got fired because the team was just flat. That's I shouldn't say. I'm not speaking for them. That's what I saw from the Rangers. And then he got hired in Philly, thinking, well, he's this great coach, and he obviously took Vancouver to the finals and everything. But I just Jesus, is he really that is he the coach for Philadelphia? I mean, it hasn't worked. And I hate to point the finger at one guy, but it sure hasn't worked with him at the helm.
Well, yeah, it's really been, and just to kind of put it into perspective, like I've always, to be honest with you, there are very few guys that I would call offensive coaches left behind the bench. Almost all of them are, defense first kind of guys. Laviolette is a guy. I think of him as an offensive guy. He likes high energy, get that puck up the ice type deal. But you don't see too many of them. But Vigneault is like that. He wants to push the puck. And he wants to get up in that offensive zone.
And but they're not doing it. They're not doing it though.
No, they are not. Yeah. And let's look at the goals against here in this division. So here we have the Washington Capitals, who by their own admission, I'm sure they would agree with this, have not played well defensively. They've had all kinds of issues. They've given up 141 goals in 46 games. Meanwhile, the New York Islanders have given up only 105. That's 36 goals. It's almost a goal per game different than the Islanders that they're giving up. The Penguins are at 126. The Bruins are at 110. You would expect that from the defensive-minded Bruins. The Rangers, though, this is very impressive, and this speaks to why their goal differential is so good. They only give up 118 goals. So, we've talked all along about the inconsistency of Shesterkin. But, they, on balance in this division, they've been pretty darn good at preventing goals, especially lately. So, and then we get to the Flyers, 162 goals.
Ooh, man.
Have given up more than the Devils, more than the Buffalo Sabres.
Ooh, I didn't realize that. Wow.
More than the Buffalo Sabres. And, the Buffalo Sabres have only won 12 games. They won 12 games, and yet the Flyers have given up more goals. Like,
I know.
Boy, that's an indictment. And this isn't one of your questions, but if you're management, are you happy with Chuck Fletcher and Alain Vigneault right now? I mean, if you're ownership,
no, not at all. I mean, listen, it's not the old Broad Street Bullies; those days are long gone. But the Flyers still are expected to be that, like physical team, get in your face. And again, I know the rules have changed, so it's not going to be the fighting. That's going to be Dave Schultz and all those guys anymore. But I mean, just to be an aggressive team, even if it isn't aggressive physically, but an aggressive team skating and going after the other team. And then you watch them play, and all those numbers you're reading off there, they play like those numbers are accurate. They're just not playing with any passion. You kind of wonder, like Kevin Hayes, when they signed him, I saw him here with the Rangers, and he played well last year. I thought he really lived up to the contract that he signed. But I just don't think – I watch him play now, and he's not that same guy. So those kind of decisions that Chuck Fletcher made – I mean, he traded for his rights. He kind of got himself in a bind. If you remember, they traded for his rights from Winnipeg without having him signed. So he could have just walked. He was a free agent. So he was really under the gun to get him signed. The player had all the leverage and got a big contract for it. So those kinds of decisions. And then, I mean, you made the decision that Alain Vigneault, who, again, I hate being like this, but if you'd watched the Rangers play under his watch, man, they went downhill. I mean, when he came in and took over from Tortorella, and that team was an aggressive team that gone to the finals, and they just got to be more of a passive team every year that they played under him. So, you do have to wonder, if I'm ownership, I'm going, is Chuck Fletcher, is that the right decision, right?
Well, then you have to factor in Chuck's history too. This guy really paid his due. Like Chuck Fletcher comes from a great hockey family. Cliff Fletcher, his dad, was a GM forever. Chuck paid his dues. Like he was an assistant GM for a long time. He really knows the game. Likable guy. There's a lot to him. But in Minnesota, there was a culture problem. And look at what Bill Guerin's been able to come in. Now there was a guy in between, Paul Fenton, but he was dealing with the culture problem too that was left over from the Fletcher regime.
And he was there such a short period of time.
Right. Yeah. But, Guerin came in, and it was clear from the beginning with Bill. Like, it was clear from the beginning that he was going to change that.
Yeah.
And I don't think he talked about it with the group. You know what I mean? Like, I don't see, Bill Guerin calling in the leadership group and saying, I'm changing what I'm doing here. He just started to do it.
Totally.
And he got it all, started. And, you can't do it overnight, but, they're a different team this year. They really are. Anyway, more questions here. And I want to try to get to them all.
So that kind of leads us into the next question, right?
Well, yeah. Will there be fallout from the disappointment in Philadelphia, Anaheim, San Jose, and Vancouver? We've talked a little bit about Philadelphia, but what about Anaheim and San Jose? Like 3 straight years out of the playoffs for Anaheim.
Right.
And, Bob Murray's been there a long time. It doesn't feel like we're getting anywhere with the Ducks. Yeah. What do you think?
Well, yeah, they have been kind of spinning their wheels for a while, and I don't really know all their prospects that much. If they're looking at the cupboard and the cupboards, shelves are full of good young players coming up, then you say, okay, they're doing a rebuild, and it's out there in Anaheim. People aren't paying as much attention out there, so maybe they're okay. Vancouver, I don't see. I think the problem with Vancouver is that they did better than they should have last year in that playoff run. So now the expectations go sky high. So I don't think there's really disappointment there. I think there's confusion.
I think there's disappointment.
Really?
Yeah. I don't think it's major disappointment, but I think fans thought that they would look better this year. I don't think they were ready to say, well, you and I can take a step back and realize that, we were just too excited about it, and, they're just a young team. But I don't think the fan base can, even, in Canada, I think they expected them. I don't know whether they expected them to, compete for the Stanley Cup, but I think they expected them to be better than they were.
Well, and the decision not to sign Markstrom, right, and to let him go.
That's why it sort of looks bad. I think Benning's okay there just because he's done a really good job of drafting.
Yes.
I'm not so sure that he's a great. He doesn't seem to be all that comfortable in all that goes into being a GM.
He does not want to talk to the media at all. Yeah.
Well, he just does. Yeah, those are the kinds of issues where I think, he probably needs a strong assistant to help him.
Yes.
But I don't think you can't question his ability to pick talent because they got good young things. And I think you and I are going to disagree on San Jose. But we'll see. What do you think should go in there?
Well, the 4 teams you mentioned, Philly, Anaheim, San Jose, and Vancouver. Philly and San Jose are the 2 teams to me that are major disappointments.
Yeah.
And to me, it's more in San Jose that, and again, here I go again, another former player in Doug Wilson that I hate the badmouth. But, I just don't see like those decisions, like when you've already got Burns and then you go ahead and sign Carlson or trade for Carlson, then sign him to a big contract. We talked about that at the time. I just felt like you got too much of the same thing there. It just seems like that organization really has kind of spun its wheels. They trade and getting rid of Pavelski, like he was your captain, and not re-signing him. I guess I don't know what the decision was behind all that, but I think that San Jose is a major disappointment, and I think Philadelphia is a major disappointment.
Well, I think they're a disappointment too because they don't seem to be getting anywhere. But I don't feel Doug Wilson is in any trouble, Tom. I really don't, and this is why. Like he's won so many playoff series. Like you look at his history. I was looking at it this morning. Like that team has been in contention for a lot of years. They're not that far removed from being in the final now.
But other than the year they went to the finals, so I don't look at them as a team that's a contender that often.
But they've been there. They've won a lot of playoff series. I don't know what his record is. We can call it up. But you look at where they they win. They get into the second, third round more consistently. Granted, since they went and did exactly what you said, they run in Carlson. They haven't.
Yeah, it's just not that they're not winning. You watch them play, and it's just a lifeless team. And Carlson himself is just a shadow of what he was as a player in when he was best in Ottawa. We lost Kevin there. We'll get him back. So Kevin sent me some questions here. So we'll go through these questions while he's he's getting the squirrel going there on the treadmill some more. So should Buffalo keep Don Granato? So the Buffalo Sabres will get Don Granato. There he is. He's back.
Never mind Doug Wilson being fired. I should be fired for being a knucklehead. I knocked myself off. I was trying to call up the San Jose season. Holy cow.
You know what, though? I am going to look up. So for next show, I'm going to look up the San Jose record in playoffs and see what they've done. Because, again, it may be a decent record, but I'm just thinking to myself, like, I watch them play and I go, they're like a lot like Nashville to me. It's just the same thing, although Nashville's playing better now.
Okay, I'm going to call this up because right now we need to just talk about it a little bit here.
Okay. All right.
We won't go too much in it because we'll go back. But okay, so all right. So the year before they didn't make the playoffs. So 2018-19, they made it to the conference finals and they lost in 6 games. And the year before that, they won the first round, lost in the second round. 2 seasons before that, they got to the Stanley Cup final. They've been to conference finals. In the last 10 years, been to conference finals twice.
Yeah.
So twice before that. So, but they win rounds.
Yeah, but okay, that's the thing, though. But I hear you. I can see that they've won rounds. But when I still watch some play, I say, okay, is it one of those teams that just wins a round or wins 2 rounds, but really isn't a contender?
Yeah.
Right?
No, I mean, I think that's fair. I mean, I think that's fair. And they just don't seem to. I think what you're also saying is they lack pizzazz.
Yeah.
Like we don't. We're not excited about them every year. Like
right.
The Boston Bruins. They're there every year,
right.
And they have this aura about them.
Yes, exactly. There is no aura. There's no culture there. What
right.
are the San Jose Sharks? But to your point, for whatever reason, as much as I think he's not done a good job there as general manager currently, I think you're right, though. I don't think he's in trouble. I have the feeling there that ownership really believes in him.
Yeah, I think they do. I mean, he's he's a smooth guy, and just like we said that Benning is not necessarily comfortable in some of the things that goes into being a quality general manager. Doug Wilson's very comfortable.
Absolutely. He's got the best hair in the National Hockey League.
Well, he's got a persona.
Yeah.
And, he presents well. He's a good face of the organization. He's a smart guy. Yeah. There's a lot there, and they just haven't been able to put it together. And ultimately, that's what he's there for, is to win the cup.
Totally. Yep. I agree. I agree.
All right.
I like these questions. Come on, let's go.
Yeah, let's go. Let's go fire up here. Should Buffalo keep Donnie Granato?
I think you said this before too. I think Donnie Granato will be a good coach down the road. Their issue now is credibility, both at the general manager seat and in the coach behind the bench. And so for that reason, I don't think he should stay. But we talked about this before. You've touched on this, said it very well. The Pegula family, it seems like they're going to do it their way. And they may say, no, like he is part of this family here, and we're going to keep him. So again, I don't think it would be the right move to keep him, not because he's not a good coach, but he's not. To me, it needs somebody with some pizzazz behind that bench, somebody with a name. He's not. And again, I'm just a huge Gerard Gallant guy. With a coach like that out there available for you, that's who I would go after. But based on the way the Pegulas have handled things, I wouldn't be surprised if they do keep him.
Yeah, I'm going to defend Granato and say they should keep him, just because I think he's connected well with their younger players, and their younger players are key. Like Dahlin has played much better since Granato took over, and I think that's crucial for that team. Middlestat has been better, and Eichel knows Granato. I think he's comfortable with them. I mean, obviously he's not playing now; he's injured, but I think that and they got Cousins. Dylan Cousins is going to be a key player for them. So I think and he spent a lot of time, Granato did, as part of the U.S. development program. And I think he's comfortable in a teaching role. And it seems to me that we still need a teacher in Buffalo. Now, I don't discount your points about the need to have, some sort of, we called it an aura before, you might need a guy that's been around the block a little bit. But I will say this, even though he lacks in head coaching NHL experience, Granato's been around the block.
That's true.
He has been around. He's been an assistant coach. He's been in a program. He's been a head coach, obviously, of a program, just not at the NHL level. So, I'm actually rooting for him. I think he's a good guy, and I like to see that work. Now, I think this is a hard question, but I'm going to give it to you anyway, because there's no question too hard for the great Tom Laidlaw.
Yes.
Where should Dougie Hamilton go next season?
He should go to Don Waddell and say, I am staying here. Here's what I'm worth, but I want to stay here with Carolina. I was looking at their defense. I mean, their defense aren't. I mean, they've got a good defensive group there, but he's really, to me. I mean, he was in Boston. He was in Calgary. He finally got to Carolina. And now, again, I don't know all the details. It seemed like there was some kind of a character issue, character flaw there. And again, that's unfair for me to say because I don't know totally, but that was kind of the stories that were going around. But now he's there in Carolina. He's got a great coach. It seems like he's a great fit right there. And, listen, I mean, you always want to try to make the most money, and he's going to be in a pretty good spot. He's an unrestricted free agent, and he's played really well. He's highly regarded as a player. And maybe they'll go ahead and give him a real good contract. But I would stay right there if I were him. First hockey, he's only 27 years old, too. Like, does that mean, to me, he's going to have a couple more kicks at the can as far as contracts. So I would stay there.
Yeah, I would too. The chance to be with a rising team, these young players on this team are going to get better,
right?
And you can be a part of all that. And plus, I think playing in Carolina, it's kind of what you want. Like you can sort of live your life.
Yeah.
He's been in the Canadian market. He knows how that is. It's hard to go to the restaurant there because everybody knows you. I bet he can go and enjoy barbecue without people knowing,
Yeah. And here's what I do too. The cap being flat because of the pandemic for the next couple of years, unless he can get a real big time contract, I would even think that, like, why not sign for like a 3 or 4 year deal? It's still good money. Let the cap go back up. Continue having success, like you said, if they either win a cup or get close to winning a cup. If you're now coming off a run like that, and now you get to hit free agency again at like 30 or 31 years old, I mean, he can still get himself a 6 or 7 year contract after that. Playing to 37 now, if you keep yourself in shape, it should be no problem. So I wouldn't do a shorter term deal unless, again, somebody gives him a real big time contract. But we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the teams where that he might be tempted by, like there's no room in the end in Tampa, so he's not going there. That's a great team. I think Toronto would love to have his offensive abilities, but they got 3 $10 million players there. How much can they give him? So I mean, maybe they could work it out, but
how about the Islanders or something like that?
Well, the Islanders are kind of tight against the cap. It'll be interesting to see where they are. But he certainly he would make that team different.
Yeah, totally.
And that would help their offense immeasurably. So, but I like that. And then the final question in my
love this one.
Yeah, who will be Seattle's number 1 goalie next season?
Why not the expansion goaltender, Marc-Andre Fleury?
Yeah, I maybe, but I don't know. I mean.
1 year left on his deal.
I mean, first of all, you got to get him. You got to get him to go because he's got a no move, so he can't be exposed. They've got a problem there. I think both those guys do have no moves, don't they? I check that out before I said that. But so they're going to actually have to get a goalie to expose unless they brought someone up. Did they have someone up this year that I'm not thinking of?
I don't think so.
Okay.
He does have he's got one of those no move where you put in 10 teams you wouldn't want to go to.
Okay. What does Leonard have one?
Hold on here. Let me go back. Leonard, Robin Leonard. He has got he's at, where did I see that? I'll have to check that. I'll find it for you.
Okay, well, here's my picks. Like, if I was a GM and not Ron Francis, 2 guys I would be really interested in would be Jake Allen out of Montreal, who's played pretty well at times this season, and then Georgiev of the Rangers. Those are 2 guys that I would be looking to try to secure. I'm sure the Rangers will try to. It'd be nice for them to continue on with their twosome. So I'm sure they'll make some effort to try to protect him.
And they've got other young goaltenders they could expose too. So,
but they're going to have to expose either him or Shesterkin. So
Shesterkin's not going anywhere. Why do they? I'm bad.
You can only protect one goalie.
Right. Oh, okay. Gotcha. But I would think the Rangers will do something else like George McPhee did there, make another trade for somehow to say to Seattle, stay away from our goaltenders.
I mean, you'll try to do that, but it depends on how much they want him. And I'm sure what they'll do is they'll say, "Look, I'll trade him somewhere else if you don't make that deal with us." Because I mean, wouldn't Steve Eisman like Georgiev?
Yeah.
He's got no goalie in the system. So if Seattle won't play ball,
Right.
then you say, okay, well, he's going to the Red Wings.
Right.
So
Right. Real quick, Leonard does have that limited no trade where he puts in lists and it goes down. The length of the list goes down.
So now they can't. They'll actually.
But think about if you're Marc-Andre Fleury. Think about how he felt when he was the pick for.
But they had worked that out before,
Right, but think about how great it was for him. He was the guy. He was the face of the franchise there in Vegas, and now that's kind of slipped away. Now Robin Leonard is coming, right? He's not the clear number one anymore. So now, listen, he's got pride. He's getting near the end of his career. Now he's got a shot to doing it again in Seattle.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Seattle
maybe. I mean, it's totally up to him, though.
Yeah, totally. But if I'm him, I'm thinking about why would I want to stay in Vegas now, right? When I'm not the number one guy. I'm not clearly the number one guy. Maybe I'm 1A or whatever. I can go to Seattle, and again, I'm the leader there. I get another chance to I'm assuming he felt like when he went to Vegas, he was going to be part of that franchise well after he retired from playing, if he wanted to be, right? He had that personality out in the public again, and now he's going to be doing the same thing in Seattle, or has the ability to do the same thing. And if I'm Seattle, that's what I want. I mean, look at what happened in Vegas. Why not do the same thing that Vegas did?
Yeah, but although I mean, I know you're saying, well, Vegas got to the Stanley Cup in the first year, but this Vegas team is really a good team. So, and he's older now. Right. Shouldn't he want to stay in Vegas? And I mean, I think he's pretty comfortable that he can beat out Leonard.
But he's contractually, he's not going to, though. I mean, what are they going to do at the end of his contract? He's got one more year in his contract.
Right.
Leonard's got 4 more years in his contract.
Yeah, but if he just waits till the end of his contract, he can be a free agent and go somewhere that will be probably a little better than Seattle. I don't, Seattle is
really though. Where's he going to go that's better than Seattle at his age?
Well, I mean, it just depends on how badly someone needs a goalie. If let's just say it was this year, would Carolina take a shot at him? Mrazek's an unrestricted free agent. That's a good young team.
Right.
Washington, they wanted Lundqvist, and a lot of people thought Lundqvist was going to be their guy.
Yeah.
Would they take Fleury? But we don't know it is. Now, here's the thing.
So we're told here, and we'll check on this, Igor does not need to be protected. That's Georgiev.
That's right. Wait a minute. How many years has he been a pro?
This would be his third year pro. This would be his third year pro, right?
I think his second year pros have to be.
We'll check on those things.
Yeah, we will. I thought it was. Let me see here. Well, we're gonna.
But Marc-Andre Fleury. I just think. Okay, so he's at his age now to go someplace else to a contender. I guess it's possible for 1 year or whatever. I don't know. I just I just felt like it was such a compliment. If I was him going through all that stuff when he went to Vegas, all the things they were saying about the great team player, is going to be the face of the franchise, I would have loved that. I mean, to me, that was really complimentary towards the player and the career that he built, the reputation he built. And I guess if you go someplace else other than Seattle, you could still have that. But I mean, now you're going to Seattle, doing the same thing all over again. All the great, the great start there in Vegas. Let's do it all over again in Seattle. But
yeah. Well, I mean, maybe. I just don't know whether Seattle, even though they have the same rules, will be able to get the same team, because I think the GMs have gone to school a little bit. So, and I don't know that they're going to be as willing to give up multiple assets as they did before.
Right.
So.
Very true. You know what I think too, and I give George McPhee a lot of credit. He's a former teammate, former Ranger, and all that, and a friend of mine. But the credit I give him for isn't that he built the team that won that quickly. I still don't think that was his goal. Did he want to win? Yes, but he wanted to his job was to build a team that was going to win in 4 or 5 years. Now I think a lot of the players that played better than anticipated, and I thought got great coaching from Gerard Gallant. And so they had that instant success. I just, I think for other teams to expect that it's going to be that good that quickly, it's going to be hard.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. So, what do you think? Is Arizona have a shot to?
Yeah.
So
Well, I like the way they're playing too. It's not just where they're at in the standings, but it's the way they're playing.
Yeah.
You know, Rick Tocchet effect is finally. People have always talked about how he can. He's that kind of coach that can get a lot out of his team, and he seems to be doing it. So
yeah, I like that team too. To me, it's for them is will they get enough goals? But they have the goaltending. Their defense is strong enough. Tocchet system is, I've said before, he doesn't get enough credit. He does a good job. So.
How about Nashville? Okay, so that's the team that to me, and how bad I was towards them. I just didn't think they had it. Now they're in that playoff spot.
Yeah, they are, but the Blackhawks won't go away though. They're only 2 points behind. Dallas, I don't know. They've had those games in hand forever and haven't done anything with them yet.
Yeah, I know. So, now Colorado. So Vancouver's back playing. They win their first game after 3-week layoff or whatever. And now Colorado shut down, right?
Yeah. So, that's going to be interesting. One of the elements that we're going to have to be concerned about is next season. Like we're all just assuming that everything will be hunky dory next year, and we'll open up the full house. I'm a little less sure of that. I mean, I think that's what's going to happen, but we've done a pretty bad job of forecasting what this virus is going to do.
Yeah. Totally.
Not me and you personally, but just everybody.
Yeah.
Here we are in Michigan, and we're overrun again. And people are sick. Our hospitals are full. They're talking about us in the New York Times and CNN, and about we have a strain here, and it's the young people. Now the young people are hospitalized.
Is that right? Oh.
Yeah. So it's just not. And they quoted. It was interesting. There was a New York Times story, and they quoted the hospital director and asked him why it is that the surge has hit the Port Huron so hard, where I used to live years ago, and he said, well, because I go by Garfield Elementary School, and on my way home, and I see 25 kids playing basketball with no mask, out there. Well, Garfield was literally 30 yards from in front where my house was in Port Huron. Yes, that. I know exactly what he's talking about with that basketball court. Years ago. So, but
then up in Canada too. I mean, obviously, if we're talking about the National Hockey League, Canada is such a big part of it. I mean, they've locked down everything there, particularly in British Columbia and Ontario. Everything's locked down. So,
yeah. Well, the courts in Michigan have said that our governor doesn't have the authority to lock down everything, so we're not locking down, and that hasn't made it. So we've got a victory if you're people that believe that you shouldn't lock down things, but now we got more virus. It's complicated. I wouldn't want to be a decision maker in this world.
Okay. Well, you and I are always right.
Yeah. Well, for sure you are. So, all right. Well, we appreciate everyone for tuning in. Follow me on HockeyBuzz.com, and also Tuesdays and Thursdays I have a podcast with Bob Duff on HockeyDebates.com, 4:00.
And you can listen to the radio version of this show at 365 Sports at radio.co. Again, it's radio.co at 365 Sports. We'll see you guys on Wednesday.